What's up guys, Winter Kills here, and welcome to sort of a beginner's guide video. Somebody requested recently on one of my videos that I do one of these types of videos for Dark Souls 3. So I was like, you know what, that sounds pretty cool. I've been doing a couple PvP videos lately, waiting for the new DLC to drop. So I figured I'd get this video up and maybe a couple more builds before the new DLC drops, which I'm really excited for, which I will be doing a playthrough for that. Sort of continuing on from the series that I've already done. But yeah, there's a couple points that I want to touch on. I've got a few in mind that are kind of important when it comes to just playing any of the Soulsborne games in general. And I think that first thing that I want to talk about is leveling up your character. I think a lot of mistakes that people make when it comes to leveling up in any Souls game is that, you know, and I did this on my first playthrough too. So when you go to level up, you have all these options to choose from. There's a lot of big words here. You got vigor, attunement, endurance, vitality, strength, dexterity, intelligence, faith, and at the very last but not least, you have luck. You know, one of the mistakes that I made when I very first played Dark Souls, the very first game, not including Demon Souls, obviously, you know, I just wanted to level up everything at once and sort of keep it all leveled, right? Because you wanted to be an all-around character, have everything sort of be at equal level and not have a stat lacking behind. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not always the case. Sometimes the better thing to do is to pick a few stats and just go with those. Now, my character right now is a dex build, which corresponds with the weapon that I'm using, which is a dex weapon, which we'll move on after we talk about leveling. So you have dexterity, strength, you have strength, dexterity, faith, intelligence, and I guess luck could also be included into this category of stats that are going to affect your damage output, which of course is the main focus in the game. You're going to be fighting things with weapons, unless you want to do fist only. But you're going to be fighting things, you're going to need to do damage, and these are the stats that are going to help you increase your damage based on what kind of weapon or catalyst or spell or whatever you're using. These are going to be the main things that are going to help you do the damage that you want to see. Strength weapons, obviously dexterity weapons like curved swords, katanas. Strength, I guess, would be great swords, great hammers. Intelligence, spells, faith would be miracles, and I think some pyromancy. And then luck is for a lot of dex weapons, but it's also very good for bleed. I know luck-based builds are really good with bleed weapons, and those are kind of one of the weapon status effects that we'll talk about when we go ahead and talk about weapons. But yeah, so basically, if you want to go with strength, if you want your character to be a brute, strong kind of guy, you go with strength. If you want to be more quick and nimble, dexterity. If you want to use spells and miracles, these two stats right here are going to be where you want to spend most of your souls. Luck also increases item find, which can be important if you want to go for all the items in the game, because some enemies do drop items, and they drop it, you know, once, and then, you know, the next time you kill them, they might not drop it, and they might not drop it for the next 100 times you kill them. Sometimes that's how it works. If you want to just get all the items in the game, you're a completionist, luck might help you out trying to get more item find, and there are certain other pieces of equipment and rings and stuff that help you boost your item find as well, other than just leveling this. So luck not really necessary to level as far as the damage base, but if you know how bleed works, luck is sort of really tied in with that. But a couple other things, obviously your vigor, your endurance, and your vitality are also very important for just general play. Not talking about mage. If you're playing any miracles or spells, then you have attunement, which we'll talk about in just a second. Vigor, your health points. So if you want to have health, if you find yourself dying too quickly, you might want to put points here. Endurance, if you want to get more swings before your character can't swing anymore, before they run out of stamina, that little green bar up there, that's your stamina. So anytime you roll, swing your weapon, that's going to go down. Obviously, the more stamina you have, the more times you'll be able to perform those certain actions, which can be very helpful in certain types of combat. Vitality, this is your equip load. Mine's at 60 right now, kind of light. If you want to wear heavier armor, get this number up, past 20, past 30. If you want to wear lighter armor, don't really worry about it too much. Attunement, this allows for attunement slots and I guess focus points now for Dark Souls 3. Kind of a new thing. If you want to cast spells more, you're going to need to get this number up, because I'm trying to think about Dark Souls 2 now, where you needed attunement slots to hold more casts, but it's different now. the more focus points you have, the more cast of a certain spell you have. So if you want to be able to cast a certain spell 10 times, you might need to get this number up more. You might need focus points to expel on these spells you want to cast. So if you're trying to do mage, if that kind of thing interests you, then you might want to up your attunement a lot. And there are Estus Flasks, the Ashen Estus Flasks, which you can get from this guy over here. For every Estus Flask shard, you can either have it as a regular Estus Flask, which will increase your health, or you could have it as an Ashen Estus Flask, and you just go to a lot of Estus, however many you want. If you kind of go half and half, you can do 7 and 7. Or if you, like me, you don't want to use spells, you think they're boring or whatever, you can just have them all allotted to Estus. And now I want to move on to basically your weapon and scaling. This is kind of basically going to really help you out for a lot of things in Dark Souls when it comes to fighting certain enemies that might be a little more difficult for you, and you find that areas are getting more and more difficult, and you're just not doing damage to certain things that you need to be doing damage to. Boss fights feel like they're taking forever, things like that. So basically, we'll look at this Karthus Curved Sword, Sharp Karthus Curved Sword. So basically, it is a slash type weapon. It is a dexterity weapon. Usually most curved swords, katanas, some short swords, and these twin swords here are basically all dex weapons. Some great swords are dex weapons, sort of like this Hollow Slayer great sword here. I think it is basically dex. Might have changed it though, I'm not too sure. But if we look down here, if I can get the right thing up to show you guys. Let's see. Is it this one? Yeah, explanation. So if we go here, very nice feature for those of you who don't know what's going on. So if we look here on this little line right here, it basically tells you what that weapon's going to scale with. So basically, the big muscle there, right there, the arm, that's for strength. D is probably a little bit lower on the strength scaling side of things. It goes S, A, B, C, D, and I think it can go to E, but I'm not really sure. S is the best scaling, which means the more you level up that attribute, the more damage that weapon is going to output based on how much strength you have. So let's say this weapon has a D scaling, and right now my strength is at 20. It's not going to take into account the total damage this weapon is putting out. It's not going to really take much. The damage it's putting out is going to be from strength. So you see there the physical damage is 212 plus 184, and I'm pretty sure that plus is the plus 184 is the scaling bonus. So most of that 184 is not coming from the strength, while a small portion is, not all of it. If we see here, degree to which dexterity boosts the attack power of your weapon, it's a B. So probably 75%, 80% of the extra damage my weapon is putting out is due to my high dexterity, which as you can see is at 55. So same thing goes for any strength weapon, like this weapon here, or this great sword. Obviously it's not leveled up, so the strength scaling is still at D. Fume Ultra Great Sword, I think they nerfed it a little bit. It went from S scaling to A. But if you get this thing plus 5 and you have really high strength, it's going to be putting out a bunch of extra damage due to that scaling. So one important thing you want to keep in mind, always check the letters in your weapon there down below. Some, as you'll see, have scaling letters all across the board, just above the requirements to wield the weapon. So you want to keep an eye out for those. And just another little thing, if you notice the different colors of letters and numbers there, blue means it's better than the current thing you have, and red means it is not as good as the current thing you have equipped. So this weapon has a better strength scaling, but it also has a worse dex scaling, as you can see by the different colored letters there. So I just thought I'd go ahead and talk about that. So yeah, just some basic things that I wanted to talk about as far as just leveling your character and choosing the right type of weapon you want to use. Again, all entirely based off player preference. If you wanted to use strength weapons, like I said, you can use big weapons. Just keep in mind your level of strength that you have for your character, and make sure, fits properly, and you'll be able to do a lot more damage. And now, also, another thing comes to when you're fighting bosses, and a lot of times I've had this issue, when you get to a boss and you can't quite learn exactly how you're going to be able to beat this boss. It's giving you a really hard time. I'm sure most of us have been there if you played any of the Souls games. But if you haven't played any of the Souls games and this is your first time and you want to get a little insight, you're going to come across some bosses that are going to be very, very difficult to deal with. They're going to give you a very hard time. And a lot of times it's because you don't take on the boss fight like you should. A lot of the times there's a certain thing you're missing about that boss fight. For example, the boss you fight here, Idax Gundyr, the very first boss in the game, for a seasoned player, not very hard. The boss has low health, and you can tell by each time you hit it, it's doing more and more damage because its health pool is a lot lower than, let's say, of a later game boss like the final boss, which I won't spoil if you haven't played the game. Like a final boss, you know, it's going to have a lot more health for you to chop through. But for a beginning boss, it's going to have a lot lower health. And if you get to an area and you feel like you've been leveling correctly, your weapon scaling is good, all of that, you pick the right weapon for your character, and that boss is just giving you such a goddamn hard time. You've tried summoning and it's not working. There's probably an area or two you missed that you're missing extra levels from, because obviously when you go through an area, you get souls. You get more souls, you level up, and your character is starting to become more and more on par for each level that you go through in the game. Obviously, when you come through here, you can be very low level and survive because it's the beginning area. But if you were to start here and get teleported to, let's say, 75% through the game, very late game area, you're going to get stomped on by everything because your character's not adequate to operate in that situation, that area. So that's one thing you want to sort of take notice. If you're having a really difficult time with something, just kind of be like, was there any areas that I missed? Anything like that, anything at all that you might have missed, you might want to go back and just double check and see, because you might be missing extra levels. Another thing I kind of want to talk about, this is kind of a tip also. I don't know if I have any in my inventory here. Yeah, Fading Soul. These little consumable souls, the consumable items here, I don't personally do this. That's a bad habit. You get these collectible souls, consumable souls throughout the game, which help you to gain extra souls just by using them in your menu. And those gain you extra souls, obviously. And those can be very helpful in a situation when you need just a few thousand more souls. It kind of prevents you having to go grind out enemies anytime you want more souls. And one thing I want to mention is definitely don't use them immediately. Hold on to them, because you might want them at some point in the future. You're like, oh, I just need 5,000 more souls. Where can I get 5,000 more souls? You look in your menu, you're going to have 10,000, 20,000, 30, 50,000 extra souls just stored up in your menu there. So you can just pop them whenever you need extra souls. Also, same thing goes with boss souls. A lot of boss souls you can do extra things with than just getting your souls from them. So hold on to those as well. Read your item descriptions on boss souls, and basically any item description, you go up to it and you just press this, and it'll tell you a little information about that weapon. For any soul, it'll tell you sort of you can acquire something of great power with that soul. So also keep that in mind. But I guess now to kind of get back on the main topic, what I was going to mention, as some bosses, you want to learn their attack patterns. I know it may sound pretty obvious, but learning their attack patterns is going to give you a huge heads up in any boss fight. Notice when they take a pause for a moment. Notice when they do certain flurries. Notice when they're kind of taking a moment to back up. Notice how they respond to your character. So if you have your shield up all the time while you're fighting a boss, which in some cases is a great thing to do, but you notice they keep going like this, they keep breaking your guard, they keep doing a certain attack, maybe don't keep your shield up a lot. Maybe you just want to emphasize more on rolling, because I feel like Dark Souls, you know, maybe in this game, since the combat is a little more fast-paced than previous Souls game, you want to just keep your rolls on par. And if you feel like you're not rolling as fast enough, to kind of go off on another little tangent, if you feel like you're not rolling as fast as you want to be, my character right now is probably about a fast roll, almost a mid-roll. Just check your equip load there on your character, and you'll be able to see my equip load right now is 34 out of 60. I think to be qualified as a fast roll, it's got to be at 30 out of whatever your equip load is. Any higher than that, you'll have a mid roll, your character will be rolling a little bit slower, and then a fat roll, and your character will be rolling really, really slow. So if that's the case, you might want to just take off more armor. Sometimes being able to move around faster around a boss and be able to just roll faster, roll more times, because you'll get more rolls out of it, because each roll won't eat up as much stamina. You might want to just take off some armor. If you feel like you're getting hit too hard, maybe you want to put some more armor on and tank the boss fight with a big shield and do it like that. A couple of ways you can approach the boss, but learning its move sets, when you can take your attacks, Just take it very slowly. You know, he does attack 1, attack 2, and then maybe he runs at you and does another attack, and then he takes a pause, maybe get 1 or 2 hits in, and do not be greedy. That is one very, very important tip about Dark Souls, is do not ever be greedy with anything that you do, whether it be fighting just common enemies or a boss, because trust me, when they have like 10 health left, a very sliver of their health bar left, and you're trying to get greedy and they hit you one too many times and you die and you have to start the whole fight over again, when all you need to do is be careful and just get 1 extra hit on them and you would have had the fight that you've been trying to beat for hours. You're going to really hate yourself when all you had to do is just take it a little more carefully, because sometimes the careful approach is better than the completely aggressive approach. But yeah, that I think is to wrap up, you know, the boss fighting aspect of the game. Obviously, one of the very important things, because you need to fight bosses to beat the game. One of the that'll wrap up that, I guess, as far as just boss fights in general. And one last thing I want to talk about is just playing through the game in general. Just keep your eyes open for little soul packets on the ground, little bright balls that kind of, you'll see them when they drop from an enemy. A little item you can pick up. Those are hidden out throughout the entire game. And as you go on to later new games, they place different items in different areas, upgraded rings and stuff like that. You'll get ring, you know, X ring +1, Y ring +1, Z ring +1 or +2, depending on what new game you're in. And as you go into higher new games, the difficulty of the game will increase. And by that, I didn't mean they don't put more enemies everywhere. Enemies have more health and they're more aggressive. So that's one thing to take into account. If you're going into another new game, and you're like, why is this so much harder? It's because they increase the health and all that stuff. But yeah, that's just some kind of basic insight on Dark Souls 3, and I guess for most of the information, just Dark Souls in general, because some of the mechanics have been the same throughout the whole series. And yeah, just play it safe, have fun while you're playing. That's the most important thing I can say, is definitely have fun. Sometimes the rage will get to you. Try not to let it take away from the game, because it is a great series. And if you haven't played all the games, this is your first game you're playing, I recommend play through Dark Souls 3, play through Dark Souls 1, or Demon Souls if you want to, then Dark Souls 1, then Dark Souls 2, and then play through Bloodborne. It is a PS4 exclusive, but if you have a PS4, if you're thinking, should I get a PS4 for that game? Yes, you should get a PS4 for that game. It is amazing. But yeah. And yeah, like I said, guys, remember, have fun with the game. Let me know if this helped any of you at all. Just a quick video I wanted to make just for that one person. If you're the only person that found this useful, you're welcome, and I'm hoping to help you out a little bit. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Winterkill signing out. We'll see you in the future with maybe two or three more PvP builds, 1 or 2, 3, I don't know, PvP builds in the future. Hope you guys have been enjoying those, and with the DLC content coming soon, October 25th, I'll definitely be covering that. So thank you guys so much for your support. As always, Winterkill signing out. We'll see you in the next one. There's the gesture. See you later, guys. Thank you so much for watching.